Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Rushdead Dixon Vixen, and I just want to give you an update on how 2022 is going with for me right now. As you see, I look terrible. I really do look terrible. It all started on a Sunday when I was with a friend walking back home from getting groceries because I promised I'd cook him dinner that night. I promised him and he'd pay for all the food. So when we were walking, we took a shortcut through the park. I had a bag of groceries in each hand. Everything was going great until all of a sudden, when we made it out of the park, I tripped over a stump or a rock or something like that. And then I started to fumble, and then I fell forward, fell right flat on front of my body, and I landed on my two hands, and I was very shaken. I was shaken up. It shook me up, and thankfully my friend was there, because if I was all alone, I would not have handled it. Eventually he was there, and eventually then he grabbed all the groceries, and then he walked me back to his place slowly, and then went back into his apartment. I was shooken, but my right arm was hurting. I thought it was just one to be. I thought it was sore muscle or something, a sore torn muscle or something like that. But after taking a couple of Tylenol and I was shaking. My leg was shaking vigorously, trying to keep warm, and I was and nearly having a panic attack. I was scared. I was just trying to deal with the pain while my friend had to make the dinner for me. So eventually, it took like we didn't really eat dinner till like about 10 o'clock at night. So, but it was good. And then I went home and I put some ice on my injuries, put some heat on my injuries, and tried to get some sleep. Not sleep on my right side, on the side where my arm was hurting. So eventually, but I had a rough time sleeping that night. I got up very early, took some Tylenol, and tried to deal with the pain. And I looked up on Google to get some advice and all that. But eventually, well, thanks to my neighbor, she told me you have to go see a doctor. But eventually, I ordered a shoulder brace from Amazon's. But eventually, I thought that would help. But the pain was at Monday night. The pain was starting to I, is unquestionable. So I went next door. I got some ibuprofen because I heard ibuprofen is much better than Tylenol. And they put my neighbor had some biofreeze that she got from her chiropractor, and she put it on me. And then eventually, I took a couple of ibuprofen, and then I went to bed. And eventually, got up most of the nights after like 1 hour, 2 hours of sleeping. I tried listening to Time to Kill on my Alexa by Michael Beck, but that didn't really help a bit. So eventually, so, but then I laid on my back. I tried to deal with the pain and fell asleep. I woke up at around noonish or so. So I got out of, so I woke up and I thought about it. And I said, I think I should call my doctor. So I called the doctor. They told me to come in at 2:45 so they could get it checked out. So eventually I was nervous as hell because I haven't been to the doctor's office in a long time due to this outbreak of COVID and all that. So eventually I sat in the I was nervous as hell. And then all of a sudden the nurse came, I explained everything, and then the doctor will be here any minute. Then Dr. Alton came. He tried to move my arm and all that, but it was like hurting like crazy. And he's like, well, you know what? We're going to send you down in the main area to get an X-ray. I said, okay, I'll have to do this. So eventually I got everything. I got an X-ray. I was nervous as hell. I waited in that office. I was trying to take my mind off the pain, and so eventually I went into the X-ray, and they took an X-rays of my shoulder. I was like nervous. I had to hold weights in my hand and keep them down. Like one side, my left side was fine, but my right side really hurt. For something that I thought, oh God, don't tell me I have a torn ligament. Don't tell me it's broken. Don't tell me. And he says, okay, then as soon as the x-rays were done, she told me to sit down. The nurse told me to sit down, and I was just like, okay, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, God, please please don't let me go through. I have to go through this. Oh my God. And then officially the technician came out and says, you need to go to emergency now. I said, why? Do I have to have surgery? He goes, no, your shoulder's dislocated. You have a dislocated shoulder and a mild fracture. So it's best if you go to the emergency room and let them take care of it. I said, okay, fine. I'll go then I'll go now. They called me a cab, and I was alone due to these COVID rules, which sucks. So I took a cab, went to the hospital emergency room, had to go through some questions. They gave me another mask to put over my rush face mask. I know, hospital rules. Eventually I was nervous as hell, depressed of those being in the hospital, because it reminded me that I had to go through it again 10 years, that what I had 10 years ago. So eventually I said, I have to do the process all over again, and it was a really frightening time for me. So eventually, the doctors, they called me, they put me in a booth, and I had to wait and wait and wait and wait. They sent me the screen test, a disc of the test, and then they said, oh, we don't have them anymore. And he says, well, that's what they gave me. I got notes and all that. Okay, so eventually she told me to follow her into the orthopedic fracture unit. So eventually, and I had to sit there for about for like an hour or two, which was so boring, which was frustrating. So eventually I updated my Facebook status. I was just sitting there. I was just going crazy. I was going nuts. I tried listening to meditation music. Then I watched the very first episode of the Brady Bunch to get my mind off of things. Then a doctor came to me, showed me the X-ray, and he says, your shoulder is dislocated and we need to put you in a room and we'll put it back in for you. And I said, okay, great. So eventually I went they put me in a room, told me to put my stuff down, told me to sit on the bed and wait. Then the nurse came, and then she started putting these stickers on my chest. And I'm like, what's this? And she goes, it's for cardio. Yes, check your cardio when you're sedated. When they reattach your arm. I'm like, what? You're going to sedate me? I'm going to be asleep? And I said, because I've never been put down before. So eventually and she told me, you're going to be fine. Believe me, you're going to be fine. So eventually, and she puts like some oxygen up these two things up my nose. And it was just killer. And it was like, oh, this is the first time I ever had any like oxygen right up my nose. These things that they put up the nose in the hospital. And had it covered with a mask. And then some lady came in and she put an IV in me. And I told her, why do I need an IV? And she goes, so we could put in the medication. Okay, so eventually, so it was about like 7-ish when I went into the hospital. When I went into the room, they told me to lie down and all that. First they put in like some type of pain medication, and then they put this white stuff in that'll help me sleep. That'll help me sleep. So eventually I just closed my eyes and I let him do the work. So eventually when I came to, I opened my eyes and everybody was gone. And I'm like, oh, how long have I been asleep for? So eventually when I woke up, my right arm was like put in a sling, put into a sling or something like that. So eventually, so here's the sling right here. That I will get to. So eventually it was a couple of hours, and then the doctor came and I said, what's going on? And he looked at me and says, what's going on? He says, how is it? And he goes, we couldn't put it back. We couldn't put the shoulder back, put the bone back. And I was like, what? I said, what do you mean? I thought you did it. That's why I'm wearing a sling. He goes, no. So they brought up an orthopedic surgeon. Came about 1 hour later while I was lying there trying to deal with the pain, this frustration, and in the emergency rooms, like there, it takes like hours and hours and hours. Like, yeah, now I know what believe me, I know what emergency rooms are like. So eventually, but I was thirsty, I was hungry, I wanted some food, I wanted to eat, I wanted to drink, but eventually I couldn't because the orthopedic surgeon was coming in. He says, we're gonna try relocate, try to put the shoulder back in, but to do it, he tried to give me some arm exercise because, but if it does not work out, we need to find where, because we don't know. They had to send me for another X-ray to see where the dislocation was. And I'm like, oh, not again, not another X-ray, because I had to go in for X-rays before I went into the ER. I had to go through it again and again. I'm like, oh God, please, more X-rays. Now what? So eventually, my blood pressure took, and so eventually they had me do another X-ray. So they had me move my arm out. I got my arm out of the sling, and I had to get the X-ray of it, and then they went back to the room. So now they have to do the whole thing all over again. But this is for a second round. So eventually, if that didn't work, I had to have surgery. So eventually, I went. So I was like, oh God, don't tell me this can't be happening again and again and again. So eventually we went back into the room, and they had to start all over again. They had to hook me up to the heart monitors. They had to put the oxygen thing up my nose, and they had to resedate me all over again second time. Like they tried to do it when I was dealing with the pain. It was too much painful. They tried the blanket and all that, but eventually an anesthesiologist came in, gave me something for the pain to ease the pain. So eventually So he put something in my shoulder, which was yeah, so to deal with the pain, and I was just like, ugh. I was just going crazy. I was about to scream. I'm like, it hurt like a bitch. Believe me, it did. So eventually, that's what they did. Then they resedated me, and I said, okay, this is it. This. Let's see if this has to work. So eventually, I got knocked out again. Then I got up again about an hour later, and eventually I was back in the sling. The oxygen was gone. The thing was gone from my nose. My masks were back on. And then the orthopedic surgeon came back and says, we put it back in. And I said, thank God. And so then he took me back into the x-ray room for another x-ray. And then he told me to, like keep taking Tylenol, ibuprofen, put cold packs on it, use some Tiger Balm to deal with the pain. Get a lot of rest. Don't use your arm too much. And come back and see me in a week so we could do a post-op. So I have to be in this sling for 2 weeks, which is much better than a neck brace. And also sucks that this is my right hand. And with all these bruises that I have, it looked like I was being manhandled. But it was just a doctor's job, and I bruise very, very easily. So eventually, they released me. She got a wheelchair and helped me, and called me a taxi. And I went home. I was starving, and I went and so I finally came home. It was like 1 a.m. So I was so hungry. I was so thirsty. I ran to the kitchen. I drank some juice. And I only had some crackers. So, and then eventually I tried to get some sleep. I turned the heater on. I got some sleep. Slept in the bed, but got up most of the night. But they say sleeping in a recliner position, because this sofa also has a reclining seat that you can do with your feet. So I'm gonna sleep on the chair tonight to see if it does make a difference. So that is the plan. That's what I'm gonna do tonight. So eventually, it's gonna be so hard when you're trying to do things with one hand. Thankfully I can open up a can opener, open up bottles somehow. But it's going to be hard to do dishes and do laundry and remake your bed and all that, which is a pain. And writing with your left hand really sucks. So, but eventually I got to get used to it. So, but the most depressing side of it, that at the doctor's office, before I had to go through this ER hoopla, I weighed myself for the first time in 2 years. Oh God. And I weighed 237 pounds. Oh God, I feel shitty. Believe me, I do feel shitty. But to work out with this, with the arm in the sling, and there's nothing I can do about it right now. I just got to eat slowly, try to eat healthy when I'm in this damn situation. But eventually, I'm sure everything is gonna work out fine. They always say, a friend of mine on Facebook tells me, read the Coos method. It's by Amelie Cruz or something like that. It goes, in every day, in every way, I keep getting better and better. And that's what I chanted most of the night last night. So this is just a bit of a setback for me, but I'm gonna get through this, through the pain, and I'm going to get myself some help with all this. Like, I'm almost 50. I'm going to be 50 this year, and I really, really want to get back into shape. But as soon as I get this shoulder situation down in control and go to physio, I got to be serious about weight loss and all that. Because this is getting ridiculous. Don't mind me. Excuse me. Okay, so right now I'm just lying here binge watching One Tree Hill. The best thing part of being out of commission is binge watching TV shows, which is a but good thing. And then drink plenty of fluids and get a lot of rest, which is the best thing to do. So eventually, I will get some help down the road. So eventually, well, that is it for me, and I just wanted to keep you updated. I will keep you updated on my posts and say how I'm dealing with the pain and all that, and me being like this with sleeping with an arm sling for a whole week, which is going to be a better challenge. Truthfully, it's better than a neck brace. Trust me. Okay, so if you have any questions about my topic tonight, don't mind me. I look terrible. My hair's dirty. Haven't washed my face in a while. Yeah, I've been wearing the same clothes like for 3 days in a row. So, but things will get better. This is just only a temporary setback. So once again, this is me, Rush Dead Dixon Vixens. Please be respectful if you want to comment or subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that. So good night, God bless, and take care. I usually do the two-finger kiss with the peace sign on it, but I can't do the kiss because I can't move my arms, so I'm going to give you a peace sign. Good night, and God bless.